Infrastructure is crumbling and the problems are only getting worse. The pressure to find solutions is hot. Let's talk about why American cities have no water, no electricity, and no money to fix their infrastructure problems. Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast, hosted by Chad Smeltzer.
Welcome to the Infrastructure Hot Seat. My name is Chad Smeltzer. I am your host. Today's guest is Barbara Robinson, who is with Norton Engineering. Thanks for joining me, Barbara.
Hey, Chad. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And then you got the name Norton Engineering from a show, right? The Honeymooners?
A sitcom. The Honeymooners. It was a sitcom in the 50s. I never watched it, but there's a guy in there, Art Carney, who was a sewer maintenance worker. His name was Ed Norton. So I've been called Norton for about 15 years in my industry because I sure love sewers. So that's why I named my company Norton, which was an obvious choice.
Love it. Love it. How did you get into being an engineer? What made you want to be an engineer?
This is the most improbable story in the whole world. I didn't want to be an engineer. I wanted to study languages because I was really good at languages in high school. And I got to about grade 11 and I taught myself French and I was going to go into languages. And then all the guys in my school that were all smart like me were all going into engineering. And I didn't like the sounds of that at all. So I talked to a guidance counselor. I don't want to lose languages. And she said, why don't you go take engineering in French at the University of Ottawa? So she said that and a light bulb went off, just went bing. I didn't even know what engineering was. I was just good at math and science. So
yeah. So now you're in engineering. You've been in engineering for a long time. What are some of the challenges you're seeing in engineering?
Oh goodness, that's a big question.
A loaded question.
I can tell you, well, there's lots of challenges in engineering. It's hard to be a professional engineer and be, responsible for things all the time. We're rushing around trying to get things done, and there are a lot of things that we need to be careful of to make sure we're doing things properly. So I would say one of the things I observe in my work now is that we're using computers too much. I nag people all the time about modeling. When it comes to I&I, everybody just models all the time, and engineers are not getting in the field anymore. So, I'm famous. One of the reasons I call myself the national sewer expert, and I'll comment on that in a second,
Yeah.
but I'm famous because I spend half my time out in the sewers. I got boots on and I'm doing entries and I'm out there with the guys talking to the guys who operate the system. Those are the guys who know where the I&I is. And most engineers don't do that. And it's a
Damn it. There we go.
And we're not providing, you can't understand sewers from your desk. You have to go out and look at them and talk to the people. You don't have to go in necessarily, but that's just what I like to do. But talk to the guys operating the sewers because they know that's where the answers are.
Now, you said something about that's unique. So being out in the field versus in the computer. So you're saying that a lot of engineering now is just done on the laptop, sitting at their desk and really not getting out there enough?
Well, it would be my observation that I&I studies, which is particularly what I concern myself with, and the national guideline that we'll talk about is all about I&I studies. The engineers are modeling; they're not in the field. So we do send people in the field to do manhole inspections and CCTV or whatever, which is fine. We don't necessarily need engineers doing that, but like I go out in the field with the guys and drive around the truck with them and pop manholes and look at things and try things or whatever.
Yeah.
That's, I'm out there kind of experiencing the sewers with them. So running hydraulic models is a far cry from actual standards and specifications and installing sewers properly, which is where our problems, where I see our problems, the problems that we need to correct in the sewer
That's
industry.
interesting. So you're getting the more hands-on perspective of what's going on in infrastructure, and a lot of the guys in the office in engineering aren't hearing the pain points, it sounds like, of what's actually happening out in the field. And you're bringing awareness to that now with your education, like your abstracts and things like that, your articles you've been posting out there and the content you've been putting out. Where do you think how can we make that better? Like, how can we change that?
Yeah, and I'll just comment on my body of work. So
Yeah.
I opened Norton 8 years ago, and I've been thinking about nothing but sewers for 8 years straight.
Right.
And as people tell me, it shows. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought there.
That's okay. I was just wondering how we can make it better. Like, how do we get them out in the field more?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the nuances of I&I, and we all know I&I is complicated. It's hard to find. It's hard to fix. All those nuances are out in the field with the guys. That the guys that work in the field, they know that stuff. That's how engineers learn. That's how we can do a better job. So, I mean, I can find. In fact, I've done it quite a few times.
Yeah.
There's a small community or a small area or a small subdivision that's got some I&I. I tell the guys, let's go out in the rain and we'll find where, we'll narrow it down. And you can narrow it down to a couple of streets by cracking manholes sequentially. Personally, I just lay on the asphalt, hang my head in the sewer. I don't do an entry, but I need to hang my head in so the light doesn't. And I can tell by looking at the flows, like it's not an exact science, but you can nail it down to areas easily, like in a few hours, or you could model for, spend 20 or 30 grand on a model, whatever, on a small area. Right. I don't know why we're getting away from that. How could we possibly? That's where the problems are in the.
That's a very good point, Barbara. Is like old school, right? You had to pop manholes to see where the I&I is coming from, because if you pop the manhole in a residential area that's an 8-inch pipe and it's flowing, or a 6-inch pipe and it's flowing at a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, and you're out there during the rain and it's 3 inches or 4 inches or 5 inches. Guess where your I&I is coming from? There's something going on. And we've definitely overcomplicated the process of finding I&I, which I think is what you're saying. Yeah.
And sorry to interrupt. Sure. One of the things I talk about, well, half of my body of work is the phenomenon of I&I in new construction. So we're building new sewers, new subdivisions, and instead of being leak acceptable when they're assumed by the municipality, they're actually leaking. Now, the number one recommendation in Canada now is to put a flow monitor at the downstream end of all new subdivisions, so we can check against performance-based specifications.
I like it.
Even if you couldn't put a flow monitor even if you didn't have the budget for a flow monitor,
right.
Pro tip from Barbara: go to the last manhole in the subdivision, open it, and look. All you have to do is look, and you can see you won't be able to see the way I can. I can tell by glancing at a sewer how much I&I is there, but you don't need to do that.
Right.
If you've got a new pipe and it's a third full and there's no occupancy, guess what? You've got I&I. It's that simple. It's literally go in the field and open the manhole. And you don't have to open the manhole yourself. The guys will. Like I do, but the guys will open them for you.
I think you're bringing light to something very interesting, because you're talking about maybe I'm wrong, but I'd like to throw this by you. You're talking about billable hours, right? If I have an engineer sitting in the office doing modeling, I'm making money as an engineer CEO, right? Versus having you out in the field just popping manholes. I don't make as much money off of you probably doing that. So is there a way the business model needs to change? I don't know. I'm trying to learn this myself.
Ouch, you kind of nailed that a little bit. Consultants make a lot of money from preparing sanitary sewer models.
Yeah.
My observation would be that a super deluxe $500,000 sanitary sewer model does nothing to find and fix I&I in your system. To find and fix I&I, you have to go out in the field and figure out where it is. When we use a model, we've got a 5-fold error going on. So hydraulic models themselves are not completely accurate.
Right.
Flow monitoring is not accurate. It's based on Manning's equation, which is based on laminar flow, and we have chunks in sewage, so Manning's equation doesn't exactly hold.
Right.
Then there's operator error, there's flow monitor error, there's modeling error, there's GIS error. All of those errors all multiply in this $500,000 model to spit out the worst area. A much more efficient way of finding the worst area is to go in the field with the guys. Seriously, you can nail it in about 3 days, and that's it. Skip your $500,000. Now, if you need a model for capacity calculations, that's different. If you're doing if you're doing a capacity study, but we're not doing capacity studies, and we're using these models to recommend a long-term capital program. There's no point in recommending a 20-year capital program on sewers, because we all know that capital budgets and sewers are practically year to year. If anything, you're on a 5-year program. Nobody knows what we're going to do in 20 years from now. So you can do that by finding and fixing I&I today, by going out in the field and saying, look, here's a bad area. Let's work on this right now while we've got the money. And I'm encouraging people, just find and fix I&I sequentially through your system. Just keep going back and find the next worst area, the next worst area. And the other thing about that is, I keep saying find and fix I&I. So when I select an area to be fixed, I discover a drainage area that's worse than other ones.
Yeah.
I'm selecting that area based on a lot of factors, not just, I use modeling results if modeling results are available. But, for example, if I want to, obviously we need to disconnect all roof leaders. It should be mandatory in Canada for roof leaders to be disconnected.
Right.
it's unconscionable that they're still allowed to get into the sanitary sewer and in combined sewers is sewer areas that are overflowing. So we need to get out and find that stuff, in real time.
Right.
Um,
You're 100% right.
yeah.
Can you
Sorry, I
hear?
lost my train of thought there.
No,
Was
no,
it
you're
Chad?
okay. So, so my experience, okay, is similar to yours. It's like, okay, I heard that flow monitoring data can be massaged because there's missing gaps of information,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
That's a common
Yes.
thing that happens, and I don't think people know that.
Yes.
Uh, not as many people that should probably know that anyway. And then we're looking. You mentioned a couple other things that are, the information is just not there. We're missing gaps in data, right? So we can't make good decisions and intelligent decisions on where the INI is actually coming from. We're just kind of modeling and guessing, so to speak, of sometimes
Right.
historically too.
And
Go ahead.
you mentioned data gaps, and my position is we actually have the data that we need to find and fix sewers now. You don't actually need to do anything else. If you go into your systems, you know what it's like at a municipality. There's silos everywhere. There's stormwater department, design and construction. There's the geotech people, whatever. They're all over the map. But there's data in all those silos that'll help with your sewers. So what you have to do is find that data. Yeah, and sometimes it's paper copies. If there's paper copies, there's paper copies. That's how it goes. Fine, look
Right.
at the paper copies. So when I talked about going and finding INI in the field, that wasn't quite true. I'm going back and forth in between the field and the office. So I'll go in the field with the guys for a few hours. I'll look at some stuff. They'll give me some information. I go back to the office. Okay, let me look at the, paper copies of that. Let me check what the model said. Let me talk to, there's all these different things that come into what the worst drainage area would be or where you'd want to start.
Yeah.
And when I'm starting in a new municipality to find and fix INI, I'm picking a drainage area where they've got a decent amount of lawn, so I can disconnect those roof leaders as part of a pilot area. I'm not going to pick something downtown where there's no convenient way to discharge the roof leaders. Like, let's make it easy on ourselves. Let's pick areas that are, easier to implement. Let's, it's still a worse area, but we shouldn't be choosing areas to find and fix INI based on a sanitary sewer model. It doesn't make any sense. And that's what we do across Canada. That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Wow.
It's not working. That's the problem. That's why I keep
it's not.
droning on about this. We're doing these INI studies. How many municipalities in Ontario, I work mostly in Ontario, have an INI study on the shelf, and I go in and I say, well, there's an INI study. Did you implement the recommendations? Well, no, because always other things come up or other constraints or there's something else, because the INI study, again, a model just spits out some green, red, yellow, and orange areas. It's not detailed enough. It doesn't give them an action plan. So we're not achieving what we're apparently an INI study. I think an INI study should be to find and fix INI. So
yeah.
And we should talk about the private side in INI studies as well, because that's another favorite topic of mine. So
Yeah, we're probably going to get to that. So basically, what I understand that you're doing is you're using the modeling, and then you're using yourself as a human to validate the data. Is really what it sounds like. Something like that. And then
yeah,
you're
so
looking
I'm
at it, you're
actually
saying
not.
yes or no.
I'm using the model as another one of the, if there is a model, just if they
there is,
happen to have an
okay.
INI model there, then I use it. Obviously, somebody spent $500,000 on an INI model. I'm going to look at it, but it's not a primary source of where the worst areas are.
Right.
Because you mentioned how they model. Of course, you have to pick a design storm, and then the response to any given rainfall is different all across the city, as we all know. So when we deliver model results, they're based on, a year or two of data and single peaking. And we know that systems respond completely differently to each storm. So they have their uses, but in an INI study, I'm not seeing it. I'd rather people spend the money actually getting out there and how I do things. I get out there personally as a senior engineer. That's not going to work in our industry. You can't send your most senior person out to do sewers. That just happens to be what my journey was, but it's not rocket science. And I'm not the one who knows. It's the guys in the field that taught me all this stuff. Everything in all of my body of work is not my information. It's things that people told me in the field, in construction. I'm in the trench when guys are building stuff. It's all what plumbers tell me. It's all information that's reported to me by people doing the work.
Yeah.
So that's where I get the information by rubbing shoulders with, shadow building inspectors, whatever. That's how I learn. That's how we all need to learn. So I'm talking about myself, and obviously that's not going to work in our industry. but I'm trying to train the industry up and as much as possible, get the information out there that there's a better way that's
Yeah.
more efficient, more cost effective.
I love,
Because
I
what we're
love,
doing now isn't working.
I love your passion, Barbara, because we need more of it. We do. We need more of it because I is becoming inundates wastewater treatment plants, right? It's just inundating these
Yes,
wastewater treatment plants. And then what I've been observing here in the States is that the quickest answer is let's upgrade the wastewater treatment plant. Let's spend $50 million or $100 million to upgrade the treatment plant, but you didn't
yes,
solve anything in the collection system. You still have the same problems. What are some of
absolutely.
your insights on that?
Oh, don't get me started on that. When we do, we call them master plans here.
Okay.
Excuse me. So if your wastewater treatment plant's getting near capacity, well, you should do it 10 years or 5 years ahead. But you develop a master plan to decide what you're going to do with the additional sewage coming down the pipe.
Right.
So every single master plan, the modern ones may be a little bit better, but we always say, well, I&I in the pipes. We should address I&I, and then invariably we say, well, we can't guarantee that addressing I&I will fix the problems. And furthermore, when we're doing these master plans, we're not using the true cost of I&I. These master plans are looking at the cost of power and chemicals. That's what they're telling me that I&I cost is the cost of power and chemicals at the treatment plant, which means we never get a cost benefit on doing I&I fixes in the system. So I'm trying to change all that. The cost of I&I is the marginal cost of the last meter cubed of sewage going to your sewage treatment plant. So if you're charging your ratepayers, sorry, I wagged my finger. That's terrible.
Yeah, you're good.
If you're charging your ratepayers $3.30 per meter cubed, which is what I pay here, that's what the I&I costs.
Yeah.
I was working with a client a couple of weeks ago, and I had them all geared up to understand what I was trying to say, that your municipalities are discharging I&I, your lower tier municipalities are discharging I&I, so this is what they have to pay for. And they said, well, okay, well, what is the I&I cost? And I said, well, it's the sewage cost. They said, well, isn't there a different cost for I&I? I'm like, no, it's all going in the same pipe.
Right.
It's the same cost. And the other big cost, climate change cost that we do not talk about enough, is the fact that when we put new sewers in and they're leaking unacceptably,
Yeah.
and I define that as any leakage over and above performance specification at acceptance, that leak in and of itself will compromise the life of the sewer. So if you've got a pipe you've laid and there's a rock or something and the joint isn't integral, the water starts going into the pipe and then it pulls fines with it. And as it pulls fines, the ground starts to shift a little bit. The gap gets bigger and bigger chunks, and eventually bigger and bigger. So, and then the sewer pipe collapses.
Right.
We design sewers to have a life of 75 years. When you got that kind of leakage happening on day one, that pipe is not getting a 75 years. I'm saying half. I'm saying 40. Well,
Right.
40 isn't half. Can we afford to dig up all these pipes 40 years from now that they didn't last 75 years because we weren't paying attention? No. And the price, the cost, the environmental cost of digging all that up and replacing all that PVC pipe just curls my hair.
Yeah.
And we don't even talk about that, which is why I want to charge the treatment rate of the wastewater at the treatment plant, as that's the only cost that really represents all of the cost to a municipality to operate their sewer system. All these planning and risk, all those things have to be accounted for.
They do.
How better to account for that than what you charge your ratepayers? That's what you say sewage is worth in your municipality. Sewage and I are the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but
once it's in the pipe, it's sewage.
Yeah. The easiest thing to do is just jack up the rates, though. Why? I mean, that's and then make everyone accountable for it.
Functionally, that's what happens. So let's say I did a study in 2015, 16, and 17 where I checked how many subdivisions in Ontario were leaking. Now, the results are not statistically significant because I didn't have enough data. However, 35 people in Ontario, I just sent the note to everybody who would listen. If anybody has full monitoring of new sewers, new subdivisions, send it to me. I just want to review and see what we're looking at. 34 out of those 35 data sets, the sewers were leaking very badly.
Wow.
Badly. Like that, this was when I started this work, which you say I'm so passionate. It's like when I see data like that, I think, what the Sam Hill are we doing?
Right.
So it's pervasive. So all that leakage is paid for by the rest of your residents. So developers building his sewers, and if we're not careful, he goes away and there's I&I that shouldn't be there starting on day one.
Yeah.
Who pays for that I&I? All of your existing ratepayers pay for that I&I, and their rates go up every year and 10% every year, and we keep putting these rates up. Meanwhile, where's this clean water coming from? And I'm not talking about the clean water that's already there. That's another question. But it is unconscionable that developers are walking away with billion-dollar profits and leaving leaky sewers in the ground for people like me and you
Yeah,
to pay for. It's just not right at all. And nobody thinks of it in that way,
they
but
don't.
I sure do, because that's the truth.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's accountability, right? If the engineers aren't out in the field, like we're talking about earlier, and they're not seeing what the construction is, how it's being installed, the pipes, for example, if we're not watching that, it's easy for a contractor to just not put the backfill in. It's easy for them just to slap it into the ground and not do anything else because I want to save money. I'm not saying all contractors do this, but if they want to save money, that's the quickest way to do it. Get the pipe in the ground, cover it up, and that's it. It's out of sight, out of mind. That's this whole system, right? So go ahead.
Let me talk about that
Yeah,
for just a
go ahead.
second since you brought it up. So pipe, we're using PVC pipe everywhere. It's small sewers. We're using PVC pipe in Canada. PVC pipe is, I'll just state the obvious, it's not concrete pipe, it's PVC.
Okay.
PVC is flexible, it compresses. Concrete doesn't.
Right.
When we used to build concrete pipe, we put it in the ground, we did all the compaction, whatever, but the concrete itself was strong enough, but PVC pipe isn't. So when we compact and install PVC pipe, it's got to be compacted. You need to compact the shoulders under the pipe to hold the pipe, cradle the pipe in place. The surrounding soil provides the structural stability of that pipe. We're not compacting like that on the private side in Canada because nobody's watching. So what happens when you don't compact is the weight of the soil on top of the PVC pipe squishes it, and then the joints pop.
Wow.
So this is what's happening. 50% of the pipes going in the ground right now are being put in without proper compaction because the building codes in Canada don't quite explicitly specify how that pipe's supposed to go in the ground. So these are huge problems that are, and I'm saying to engineers, we who care about I&I, we need to take responsibility for this, ownership of this, and convince the building code folks that we need to do I&I friendly stuff on the building on the private side because it's discharging into our public site sewers. It's half of the I&I.
Yeah, you're talking about a couple different things there. That it starts out with the procurement process, right, and in the design, right. The design can say like, oh, this is great, and we need compaction, and we need to do it correctly with installation. But then it comes down to the procurement process. So once we design these specs and this is how we want things, then we go to the procurement, right? And then we're like, okay, lowest bidder wins. And it makes no sense, right? Because then
that's a huge problem. That's a huge problem all over. But specifically for development, the problem's slightly different. A developer hires his engineering consultant, and they usually work with the same one. And that engineering consultant designs the development.
Yeah.
And then that engineering consultant provides an inspector to inspect the development. So the inspector is actually being paid for by the developer. So the person building the sewers is paying for the inspection. And who do we send out to inspect sewers? We send the junior guy. In fact, we frequently send, nobody wants to pay for inspection. We frequently send people who aren't engineers, doesn't matter, but we always send the 1 or 2 year guy. I say guy because it's typically guys, but it can be women. They don't have the knowledge and understanding. They don't understand sewers like I do. And they're a low guy in the pecking pole. And what do you think happened? And
it's true.
What do you think happens? I know this happens because people have told me it happens. They were in the field doing inspection. They kept complaining about poor quality of workmanship. The developer called the city. The city called the guy in and said, "Yeah, we're off the job," or whatever. They just take people off the job if they're too persnickety.
Yeah.
So there's just too many conflicts of interest in this whole process to really. So in Halifax in Canada, they city of Halifax Water, they inspect the private side pipes themselves. They don't let third party developer consultants do the inspection.
Hey, that's smart.
So so all of my body of work contains best practices in all these areas. How can you get around all these things that are happening in our industry? And they're all based on what is practical, like kicking around the field with the guys. Okay, we can't do this, but maybe we can do that. Or, it's got to be practical because I'm a very practical sort of a gal. There are lots of fixes that we can make this way better right now. We just have to have the will to do it and the information, obviously. And my stuff's all over. It's all free. It's all on my website. So the information's out there. Yeah. We need the political. We need this. I was going to say we need the stones to do it, but
you're right. That's why we're talking about it today, because we need to talk about it, because this is what you're talking about. A developer hiring the inspector to come out. That is so much a conflict of interest. It makes no sense whatsoever. So no wonder everything's leaking.
That's how it's done in Canada. Let me tell you something else. So the pipes on the private side for the building codes in Canada, are subject to one single inspection. It's called a prescribed inspection in the building codes. So only once the developer is required to call the contractor has to schedule an inspection from the building department, like you do if you're doing something around your house. So the developer knows the inspector's coming. So he's ready, he can be prepared. There's no like, when I do I&I work, I just pop out there whenever and I don't tell him I'm coming because I want to catch him in the act.
Yeah, that's smart. I mean, that makes
But
sense.
and it the building industry has decided, it's not in the building codes, I don't believe, I could be wrong on that, that we only need to inspect 10% of the pipes in a subdivision, and we'll assume if those 10% are doing okay, the rest are okay.
Wow.
That is what's going on in the GTA in Toronto right now. Never mind that we only go once to look at that pipe, we're only looking at 10% of the pipes. So why do we have I&I? Because we're not paying attention to the details.
Right. No, that's it right there. And then we deal with this influx of I&I as the pipes degrade. More I&I is coming in, because we started off with not having the right installation, right? And it just degrades over time, and now more I&I. Now you're just looking for. I mean, it's not even looking, but you're going to end up spending so much more money in the future maintaining and improving the system, and
it's criminal how much it costs. So the number one recommendation in Canada now is to flow monitor all new subdivisions. The cost of flow monitoring, I just did it recently, I think for $8,000 a year or something for say 3 years for a new subdivision, something like that. You buy the flow monitor, maybe now it's $11,000 per year, but $11,000 is not a lot of money in the I&I game.
Right.
1 liter per second of I&I, which is I&I or sewage, it's the same thing. 1 liter per second is about a garden hose. That's how much flow looks like, a 1 liter per second. That costs $90,000 per year to treat at the sewage treatment plant. 1 liter per second.
Wow.
I'll go out on a rainy Thursday and find like 4 or 5 liters per second pouring in just in one little area. So we can't, these things all matter. Every little drop matters.
But you're on to something, Barbara. The government leaders in general, they're not being educated on the actual numbers. And I think that's where we're failing in engineering, is we're actually not bringing the numbers, the real numbers, to light, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Because if I'm a government leader, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but if I'm a mayor of a town and I'm looking at the future of my community and wanting to make sure it's stable and sustainability for the future, you're going to want to know those numbers because it makes a big.
And engineers are the ones who have to present those numbers. So you asked earlier, what are some challenges in engineering? Engineers are terrible at public speaking. This is a big problem. Yeah. We're afraid to get up in front of people and talk. Don't worry about how you look, or just get out there. We've got to have more people more engineers in the public eye. So I do a bunch of media. I speak to service groups constantly. I mean, I love speaking to people, but other engineers, we need everybody in the industry. I mean, I'm not the only one who is an expert in some subject matter that's of interest to the public. Right. So we need to be out there and pounding the pavement and talking to people about these problems and helping our councils. I work for municipalities. I tell them, look, I can convince your council, if a municipality needs budget for I&I work, just call me, because I can convince your council, right? I can convince your council with my eyes closed how important it is to do those I&I fixes and keep on it.
Love it.
You should be investing in I&I each and every year. An I&I program needs to be permanent. It's not just, you don't just do a study and then the consultant walks away and half your staff leave. Like, no, it's got to be an inherent part of a municipality. It's core municipal work, is looking after your sewers.
You are bringing 100%. And one thing I'm gonna pivot to something else that I think is maybe I got a couple more things to bring up, but I can talk about this all day. So I've been a part of studies, or been after some studies, flow monitoring studies and things like that, where I've heard and seen, this is real stuff, where we're taking flow meters and intercept the big pipes, right? And we're trying to find I&I in the big pipes. I'm like, wait, why would you do that? Why would you spend millions and millions of dollars to find I&I in your interceptors when your sub-basins are the problem? It makes no sense.
You just nailed another thing that's in the National Sewer Standard for developing an I&I program. You can only find and fix I&I one street at a time. You can't do it on an interceptor. I don't know. We talked about modeling. Yeah, we put flow monitors in these huge drainage areas. Again, I'm finding the drainage areas that need finding and fixing by going out in the field with the guys. finding out, talking to them, checking back and forth, going back to the office, checking with this guy, that guy, what, just like
Yeah.
talking to everybody, just talking to the building department. Then I put a flow monitor in. So I'm working in Amherstburg, Ontario now, and so I had 2 or 3 areas that I thought would be good candidates to start finding and fixing I&I. I picked my number 1 area. We stuck a flow monitor in. The whole point was just in that area, it's 120 homes. It's a doable area. We're going to find and fix I&I here.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked it based on all this other thinking that I told you about in consulting. But the idea was we'll put a flow monitor in, and if it shows that this actually isn't a bad area, then I'll know for sure. I'll have the data. Of course, I knew it was a bad area because I've been out there in the rain about 6 times. So I could see the pipes filling up, but we need data. So our flow monitor showed precisely there's a peaking factor of 10.
Wow.
A wet weather peaking factor of 10, which is what the peaking factor is at the plant, which is what we're trying to address here.
Right.
So bingo, okay, I've confirmed that this drainage area needs to be fixed. And so now we're finding and fixing this drainage area this year. And then concurrently, we're starting to move into the next drainage area, like preliminary. Okay, I think this is a good one. We'll put a flow monitor, confirm. You know what I mean? It's kind of a moving program where every year, but it's got to be, I like 120 homes. I've been doing that for a long time. You just want to find a cohesive area that was built at the same time as well, because when you're finding and fixing I&I, you're going to be looking at private side plumbing. So you want a bunch of homes that were kind of built in the same era, right? They'll have the same pipe types, all that. So your solutions, because your solutions for I&I are not going to be the same across your city.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of different areas. It's going to be different. So selecting a solution for all the homes in your entire drainage area is preposterous.
Yeah.
It just depends. Get out there and look.
Yeah.
So what we did in Amherstburg was me, the engineer, the building inspector, and a couple of guys went into every single house. We made an appointment, went in every single house, cameraed the line from the inside, checked all the floor drains. I kind of have building code training as well, like plumbing training a little bit.
Yeah.
But the chief building official was with us. So we actually can see the private side I&I, all the connections. We know everything that's in the drainage area. Now we're on we know where the stuff is. Well, we're in process. Now we can start fixing. We found a couple of doozies. We found a couple of doozies. We've already fixed them, right?
Yeah.
It's slow, tedious work, but you got to grind away. And it's going to take you 20 years. Trust me, it's going to take you 20 years. But if you don't start today, it's 20 years are going to go by anyway. And you're still going to have I&I. So.
Yeah, so true. 100%. So what do you think about this analogy of 80% of the sewer is in good shape and 20% is typically the problem? And finding that 20% is, when it comes to I&I especially, do you think 20% of the system is actually the problem?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Because many old sewers that I go into are in quite good condition, like no problem at all. In fact, I would say that sewers built from 1990 onward are in poorer condition than sewers built prior to 1990. And some things changed around then. For start, we started using plastic pipe. Plastic pipe in and of itself is not a problem. It's just that it's different to concrete. And I don't know that our industry kind of kept up with that as plastic pipe came in. So I don't necessarily find that older sewers are leaking I&I wise more than newer sewers. And that's a scary proposition. That's a very scary proposition.
In my experience is precast manholes. The installation of precast manholes, we were doing inspections in the sub-basin, and the precast manholes, all of them were leaking. It comes back to construction. They didn't do external wraps and things like that. But these things were leaking like sieves, and they're 15-year-old precast manholes.
Yeah. And if your manholes are leaking, your sewers are going to leak right away because there's too much water in the ground lurking around there. So as a matter of fact, they reconstructed the sewers on my street where I live, and the manholes started to collapse after 2 years. I could hear the banging of cars were driving by, and I could hear the manhole lid banging in my basement clean out.
Wow.
Well, nobody else would know that was manhole lid banging, but this is what
you
I do.
obviously know. Yeah.
And the sewers are brand new, so they reconstructed all these manholes at the top. But so the 2-year-old sewers, did they go back to the contractor? Did they make him pay? How do you now say, okay, we've got a 75-year sewer that's not going to achieve its design life because the contractor? Something happened with the manholes. I don't know what happened.
Right.
Things happen in construction as well. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying, are we learning lessons every time so that it doesn't happen again next year? And my answer to that would be, I don't think
I
so.
was going to say the same thing. I don't think so, because it's getting worse and worse, and we don't have enough
Oh, let
contractors
me
now. Go ahead.
Speaking of inspection, let me mention something
Sure.
that's also germane, I think, to your work. So I just wanted to say that I've talked about our performance specs that we have well, you have them in the US as well. We have specifications, technical specifications for how to install PVC pipe. In Canada, it's CAN CSA 182.1 and 182.2. That's the requirement. When I surveyed municipalities, after I found that 33 out of 30, 34 out of 35 subdivisions were leaking, my next step was, okay, why are these subdivisions? Like, what are the causes and conditions? And we've talked about some of those
Right.
as well. What I discovered that was, of the prescribed inspections, of the mandatory inspections that are called for on our standard specifications, municipalities, most of them aren't doing the mandatory inspections. Leak testing of all sewers, leak testing of all manholes. Only 30% of municipalities in Ontario are actually doing those things. So it's right on the drawings that you must leak test. And why don't they leak test? I ask, why are you? Well, contractors complain, they don't want to wait, and there's pressure to finish things off.
That's true.
Oh, okay, so contractors complain, so we'll not leak test our sewers and have them leak for 75 years?
Well,
like, I don't think so.
think about why that contractor's complaining. They low bid. So their time and money. They're losing money potentially the longer they're on that project. So if you
Yeah, for sure. So of course, in development, I was saying, in development engineering, like for new subdivisions, the contractors hired by the
that's right.
developer.
Yeah, for
Right.
Okay, so
So
developers
the
trying to
city
save
has
money too.
no.
Everyone's trying to save. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So for reconstruction and reconstruction in a city, which is complicated, obviously, you're trying to reconnect everything, and you can't flow monitor reconstruction because often the sewers are live, so it's more complicated than that. But all of the behaviors that take place in the field are true, and they're the same behaviors in reconstruction as in new construction. So if we pay attention to those behaviors, we can pay attention to that, to the all the little things that add up. There are 100 ways to avoid I&I on the public side, and 100 ways to avoid it on the private side. And what I say to municipalities, look, here's a list of 100 things you could be doing better. You pick for your municipality which ones, because we're all different. Every municipalities are all different.
True.
Soils are different. Politics are different. Habits it doesn't matter. Here's 100 things. You pick the 70 that you guys can do, or the 50, or the 20, or whatever number, and start with those.
Yeah.
And gradually build up. You build up your I&I program from the beginning, but it has to be a permanent fixture in your municipality.
It does.
Surely, sanitary sewer is the most important infrastructure that we have. We could live without potable water. If we couldn't afford to pipe water to everybody's house anymore, everybody could just go buy bottled water like a lot of people do now. Anyway, I don't. I'm sure you don't. But buy those big jugs, and we could actually pipe non-potable water into people's homes, because most of the water use in a home is not potable. We couldn't live without sewers in cities, because there's nowhere else you can put the sewage. You can't have septics in cities because lots are too small.
Right.
If our sewers are not doing a good job, we are putting ourselves at risk for disease. And I know that sounds far-fetched, but I don't think so.
Nope.
Yeah, sewers are very important. We should be investing big dollars into our sanitary sewers.
We should, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not that, it's waters, it's everything. But sewers are a big problem. Overflows are still consistent. I mean, we're still overflowing and environmentally impacting the waterways. It's amazing, and it's 2023.
Think of all the combined systems. I'll use Hamilton as an example. Well, Toronto, any of them. So there's overflows down by the water because it's a combined system. The separated systems in the new areas, sort of in Hamilton, it's up on the mountain. All of the I&I from the separated system that's getting into the SANI is getting down into the combined interceptors that are going to the sewage treatment plant. So every drop of illegal I&I in a new subdivision that's getting into an existing system is contributing directly liter per second to the overflows. It should not. Anybody with combined sewers should absolutely keep every drop out of the newer separated systems, because they end up going into the combined and directly overflowing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not the only person to whom this must be obvious.
Right.
So I
hope we're not the only ones, because we're in trouble if that's the case.
No, listen, and I will say, Chad, I mean, all I do is think about sewers all day long. So I just, dream up this stuff, just thinking about it so much. And the truth is, people don't think about it that way very often, because it's not on our radar screen, right?
And until it backs up in their basement.
What's that?
Until it backs up in their basement.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So one of my recommendations to residents when I speak to service groups and all that is everybody, and this is true for you as well. Do you know the shape of your personal sewer lateral? Because you own a piece of sewer. You are the proud owner of a piece of sewer, just like you own a roof and a furnace and all that other protective equipment in your house.
Yeah.
Your sewer is, well, it's not protective equipment, but you want to protect it.
Right.
Everybody should have hire a plumber to CCTV your lateral today. When I speak to people, get a plumber in right now. Find out the condition of your lateral. If your house is 75 years old, so is your lateral. It's probably in bad shape. Maybe it's not. Doesn't matter. Get a plumber in, run a camera, and then you'll know.
Yeah.
If your lateral's in great shape, bonus. Ask your plumber when he should come back. 5 years, 10 years. But if your lateral's in poor shape, wouldn't you rather know that before the big storm hits? And of course, people would rather know that before the big
I'm
storm
sure
hits.
we could.
Yeah, it's $300. It costs $300 to get a plumber in to run a camera through your lateral.
Right.
It should be
Common
standard
sense, right?
procedure.
Yep, standard. So
Anybody buying a house that's new to them, whether a new subdivision house or a house that's been around for a while, don't ever close a deal on a house without getting your lateral inspected independently of the developer.
that's what I was going to say.
Don't rely on the developer for that.
Exactly. Well, it sounds like the developers are all like, yeah, that's a whole thing, another discussion for another time. But it's they're trying to build stuff fast, quick, and it's not as efficient as it sounds, right? It's like, get it in there and get it done.
Obviously, developers are everybody's doing what they can get away with. That's the nature of the beast, right? So we can't blame developers here. It's the municipality that's responsible to make sure those do it, right? It's not the developer's fault.
Yeah.
So it's just, we have to hold them to account. And there's politics going on. Developers are powerful.
Yeah.
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 I'll just leave it at that.
I gotta. So we'll pivot to something even more.
Sure.
Rehab. Okay, let's talk about rehab, trenchless rehab, without digging up the pipes. We're UV curing liners into these sewer pipes now.
Liners and stuff.
Yeah, but a lot of people are thinking it stops I&I and it stops problems because they line the sewer. That's kind of the mentality that I've heard is like, oh, we're just going to line the sewer. It's going to fix our problems. Now, it doesn't stop I&I, first of all, because you reinstate those lateral connections. You just opened up a whole new weak spot within the lateral connection to the new lined pipe, right? And then there's an annular space that people don't talk about behind that liner that when it cures, it's a quarter an inch, maybe less, or up to an inch in some situations.
I thought the liner was supposed to adhere to the wall of the existing pipe.
No, and maybe I'm missing something, but previous liners, there's an annular space that cures, leaving a gap, which lets roots, because I was in the root control industry, the roots would travel behind the pipe, the cured pipe, and the host pipe, the original pipe, and then they would drop down into that opened up lateral connection. And then the roots would push into the main line that way. Yeah. And then the I&I did the same thing. It would follow the path. Drop right in there.
The I&I just finds, So this is the problem I have with new sewers. So let's say there's a new sewer has a defect, a leak or whatever. So the developer agrees to go in and line it. Well, a lined sewer, I'm not an expert in lining at all. So I'm just a practical engineer.
Yeah.
I'm giving you 10 years for a lining to prevent I&I. Tops.
Yeah.
So you line a sewer, let's say it's 10 years. So at year 10, then the sewer just starts leaking and you have the problem all over again.
Yeah.
Again. So quality control in the first instance is much more important than going back and putting liners in. So I've done sewer pipes where they put a liner in, that liner started leaking, the water went along the liner, came out, they put another liner over that liner started leaking. And we can't replace the pipe. So in this particular municipality, that's just a pipe that's going to leak. Like there's nothing we can do because it's too deep and the liners aren't working, and that's really unfortunate.
I mean,
and the other thing is if a municipality has to there's a maintenance period for new sewers. If the contractor hasn't met his obligations, whatever there's fixes he has to do, you should reset the maintenance period to 0 because you want 2 years of leak-free performance before you accept.
Right.
And most municipalities, I don't think, are catching that. Don't just let them go and fix it and let them off the hook. Let them go and fix it, and you need another 2 years with the flow monitor. So that's where you need your flow monitor. Because I can see on my flow monitor precisely what's going on with those liner fixes.
And
I have nothing against liners. All these things have their uses, but We just have to be practical about how we have to make sure we're thinking about the life of the pipe.
And I think it comes down to when we're talking about rehabilitation, like I brought up about the liners, is, when they reinstate it, they create a weak spot, and obviously the I&I can come through there. But there's ways that the government, the communities could line up to the easement to the point where it, 15 feet on either way up a lateral would help stop some of that I&I from getting there. Now, eventually, maybe groundwater comes up and it starts coming in another direction from that the lateral, so to speak. But if we started lining completely the whole system, laterals and the mains, we would really start to create a tight system. Go ahead.
Here's a problem right here. We stop at the property line. Engineers stop at the property line.
Right.
Oh, we can't work on the private side. Guys, every sewer use bylaw in Canada says it's illegal to discharge groundwater or rainwater into the sanitary sewer. Every sewer use bylaw.
Right.
It is illegal for your residents to discharge illegally, including via a leaking lateral. So I'm telling municipalities, as of today, you don't need any laws. You don't need anything. You've got a bylaw that says it's illegal. You can slap a letter on everybody with a roof leader connection and say, you're illegally discharging to Sani. Please disconnect within 2 months or whatever it is. The municipalities have that, but we're not doing that. We're wringing, as engineers, we're wringing our hands. Oh, private side I&I, what are we going to do? I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to fix it.
Yeah.
We're going to tell residents they have to fix it. It's illegal to discharge these things to the sanitary sewer. It's not fair to allow residents to keep discharging and everybody else is paying for it. You and I pay to maintain my house, my furnace, my roof, all those things. I also have to maintain my sewer. We need to change our thinking about this.
We do.
So, and obviously they'd have to have programs where, there would be people who wouldn't be able to afford to fix their lateral, that kind of thing. That's fine.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of homeowners, well, I can't speak to affordability right now. Things are tough, but it's not a good solution to just have everybody else, including the poor people in your municipality, paying for it, because all that I&I is going into the sewage treatment plant and everyone's paying for it. So let's have the people pay for it who are generating the I&I, which are homeowners.
Yeah. That's a great, probably a good ending for us, you and I, because we could go on a little longer about.
For sure.
But Barbara, how could people get your content and get your articles? Is there a website? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah. So I have a website. It's dreadful. I'll warn you ahead of time. Norton Engineer. Just Google Norton and sewers, and you'll find me.
Norton and sewers. Got it.
All of my body of work is free to the public. I get paid for some of it. I didn't get paid for some of it. I'm in the business of making sewers better. So you help yourself to anything on my website. And if you see slide decks or anything that you want to use, anybody wants to swap any slide of mine you want. If you want to present to council and swap one, go right ahead. You don't have to attribute. I don't care. I write the stuff for you guys to use, and I want it to get used. So have at her, and you can contact me by email, of course. And if you need help with your sewers, I help people with sewers.
Barbara, I love it.
You want to get shit done, you call me. If you want to push paper, don't call me.
I love it. Well, look, Barbara, thank you so much for your time. This is amazing, and look forward to our next conversation, because I definitely think we can have
can't wait till we do it again, Chad.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. And thank you for doing the infrastructure podcast. What a fabulous idea. Great. Like, we're not doing enough. We got to think outside the box.
We do.
Like I've been doing, thinking outside the box. I don't know. I just invented whatever the hell it is I do because nobody else is doing it. It sounds like you're doing the same.
We are kind of disruptors in this space, talking about the problems, bringing light to these issues that are occurring. And, hopefully someone hears us, but who knows, at least we're talking about it.
People hear me. I get calls from across Canada every week. Yeah. Well, people hear me.
Good. This is great. So, well, thank you, Barbara, so much.
All the best.
Have a great day.
Namaste.
Bye-bye.
You too.
Hold on 1 second.
Thank you for listening to the Infrastructure Hot Seat Podcast. We hope that this show brought you some insight on relevant topics within the infrastructure world. Please join us every 2 weeks on Tuesday for the next episode. If you're interested in being a guest on this podcast, please set up a 15-minute interview with your host at calendly.com/Chad Smeltzer.